And so my name is Reda Satki. I want to welcome you to this debriefing for ERU managers. It seemed logical to do this given that we also initially organized a briefing session to explain what we were going to do. So this session is going to be about what we did and how it went. So just a reminder of the objectives. What we said that participants would gain is that at the end of the exercise, you would have more knowledge about the Safe for Access framework than you did in the beginning. Second, we said that you would be thinking about and thereby improving your ability to cooperate with national societies that are using the framework. And then that you'd be connecting with other humanitarian staff and volunteers. Second, why there's a need for such an exercise. So this came from IFRC and the ICRC as well, I believe. Basically, ERU delegate training doesn't include anything on Safe for Access framework. There's already many frameworks. So there's a need to develop something, a training package that can be integrated into forthcoming ERU trainings, rather than building fictional scenarios or doing a more conventional approach. We said, well, why not ask people who've actually been in emergency operations to develop case studies and actually document them. So the first two columns here are what we shared with the ERU managers about what our aims were. And on the right-hand side in the green column, you can see a little bit about what actually happened. Step one was recruitment. So how could we reach people on the rosters? And that's where the ERU managers in particular were really, really helpful in getting the word out and getting people through this complicated process into starting the exercise on the 16th of April. So what we ended up with was 345 people who applied to join the exercise. It's a pretty representative group in terms of those who were ultimately selected. And certainly validated the idea that given the large proportion that had never heard of SAF before, had heard of it but not used it in the field, that there's a need for this exercise. And you can see there's a healthy mix between people with an ERU affiliation, other national society staff and volunteers, and a few people from ICRC as well. So 206 of the 345 were invited to participate, so that's around 60%. And 157 of those actually joined and started the scholar exercise. So that's 76% of those. Now, there were and are quite stringent certification requirements. This was an intense exercise. This was not something you could breeze through. And so we did ask people to make the decision early on to either commit or get out. We knew that some people might be deployed, so there might be circumstances beyond their control. So this is why we also organized a catch-up session. But really, that commitment to supporting colleagues in the exercise was key to the engagement that we then saw throughout the 4 weeks. So what did participants actually do? The first point I want to make is that every resource we used was a high quality resource developed by the ICRC that has done the work around the Safe for Access framework. A key resource was Kathy Martin, who, even though she was, despite being in the middle of a job transition and relocation, still managed to answer all of the questions, to contribute to peer review and to contribute her expertise and experience with the Safe for Access framework. Second, what did people do? What did participants do? Each participant developed a case study on an emergency operation they were actually involved in with 3 parts. Part 3 was actually about analyzing this case through the Safe for Access framework and proposing specific actions to strengthen safer access. So practicing what people might then do next time they go to the field or when they work with the rest of their emergency response unit. The schedule was also quite stringent, with a cutoff point on the 4th of May where basically only people who actually developed a case study would be invited to participate in weeks 3 and 4. And there's definitely attrition. Again, this was this was quite demanding, as participants who are here may want to tell you when we open up after the presentation. So I want to distinguish in terms of the learning approach that we used. On the left-hand side, you've all seen and all have taken the World of Red Cross Red Crescent and the one on the security, so stay safe. So those are the type of learning where you click through screens and at the end you take a quiz. Maybe you have a couple of things to think about. Maybe you have a little game. So this was a very different way to learn. This was about being connected to each other, and we had several means and sort of practical ways for people to do that. This is about sharing experience, and this is about developing practical knowledge you can use by developing a case study. So very different configuration. And if you think about, well, what kind of learning approach is a good fit, or the best fit or the best match for what humanitarians are actually having to deliver in the field, you may want to consider or ask whether it's recalling information, or developing collaborative leadership, developing analytical capabilities, and working with others from all over the Red Cross and Red Crescent. Now, one of the keys to the exercise were the team leaders. So I wanted to include their names here and just recognize their work in checking in with participants from their society or from their language group. And just to give you a sense of the overall experience, this was a really interesting quote in the initial weeks of the exercise, where one person saw that in many ways, this sort of very chaotic collaborative approach where everybody's talking to everyone, people are developing connections, trying to figure out how to make sense of what is going on, what they have to do next. That's actually kind of like the real world in an operation. So I wouldn't claim the comparison goes too far, but yes, certainly, yes, that was quite an eloquent quote and very much what we had in mind when putting this together. So then, how did it go? Just to give you a sense, a measure of the intensity of the dialogue and how intensely people, were engaged throughout the exercise during orientation week. So before we even started, 158 people had posted over 500 comments. And I'm sure you've all been in discussion forums and online courses where getting a comment out is like pulling teeth and nobody really participates. And this was at the other extreme, at the other end of the scale. At the end of the day, what did people actually develop? So we're coming out with 94 case studies, all right, developed in 4 weeks. And so we're in the process of getting permissions from participants, and that's one of the issues where we're hoping to get some support from ERU managers, but I wish I could show them to you because they are incredibly detailed. Here you can see the names, the titles of, and the authors of all of the case studies. I invite you to download the slide deck because obviously it's a little bit too small. I'm certainly not going to read them, but to put it in perspective, this group of 94 authors developed 619 pages of case studies in 4 weeks, including almost all of the case studies use several images, most of them photos taken by the participants themselves. So that is quite impressive. That's quite impressive, both in terms of volume and sort of speed to develop this much knowledge about emergency operations. It's also impressive in terms of quality because of the peer review process. So to break it down, and this is really for both for the participants and the ERU managers, here are the completion rates. So this is a key metric in digital learning. Here you can see for each national society, the number of people who started and the number who finished. So as you can see, and I also have tagged those that have the societies that have or are involved with ERUs as well. So you can see here there's several, so the first group with 100% completion. Admittedly, some of the societies only had one participant, but that's quite significant, as you'll see that many participants who were the sole representative of a society did not manage to finish. More than half of participants completed. This is the largest group, and this is where you'll find the most ERU groups. So of course, a larger contingents. It's not the same if there's 3 of you and 2 finish as if there's 23 of you as for Spanish Red Cross and 13 finish. But you can see again the completion rates here. And you can see also where team leaders made a difference in terms of completion and progression through the course. Now, the next group is where half or less of the participants who started actually finished and working through the exercise. So that includes Canadian, Finnish, and the Red Cross Society of China. Now there are also some societies where no one finished, and this is the the list here. And of course, for Belgian and Swedish Red Cross ERUs, would be eager to hear what we know what happened to your participant. But in some cases, we did expect sort of more participants and more committed participation as well. But overall, hugely impressive what participants told us, even in orientation week, in terms of how important they considered this exercise to be for their national society. You can see it here, over 80%. Yes, put it on the important or very important side. Now, there's a lot of feedback here about the value of hindsight of reflection, about the quality of the experience, about some of the takeaways, and this is actually more significant. It's one thing to have a nice online experience, and we're happy that we're able to provide that, but the takeaways, the value of peer learning, and of course you can download the slide deck. You'll find it in the materials panel in GoToTraining, and you'll have also received it. You can also find it by clicking on the materials link in the email notification you got to join this group. In terms of what we learned and what difference such an exercise can make, this is the stuff that actually matters from a learning perspective, and in terms of developing people in preparedness, improving preparedness, and having people adopt new frameworks and think about them and apply them and sort of integrate them into their practice. We see some very interesting self-reported progress and improvement here. So I'm not going to read all of them, but I do very much encourage you, whether you were a participant or whether you helped us recruit participants as an ERU manager, to read through these. We've selected them, and to give a sort of representative sample. But really, even in terms of applicability, where we had people reporting that they were going to put this to use right away, that this was not something where they would have to sort of struggle to reconcile the gap between theory and practice. So here, yes, people told us also about how they are using what they learn, and then one person asked, in terms of what they were able to, their observations about their own participation, wondering how this would compare to other SAF courses using more conventional training approaches. So just a couple of points about what's next. As you saw, there was some attrition. We are going to offer a catch-up session. That's just a reality when people can be deployed at any time. So, and to give you a sense of a level of solidarity and sort of mutual appreciation between participants, one participant did express concern about those who had been lost, and they were not by any means forgotten. There's also this issue of permission to use the case studies. So in some cases, we definitely need your support in sorting that out. Some people have reservations and they want to make sure that it'd be okay with both their national society, but also the society they deployed in. Just to clarify, the permission to use is for the purpose of internal ERU trainings. The next one is in June, will be run by Canadian Red Cross. I believe there are also others. So that catch-up session is key to give an opportunity for everyone to finish. So that's it. I want to first ask Panu to say a word about his perspective. Then we'll ask ERU managers and coordinators, whatever your formal title may be, for any questions and follow-up. And then I want to open it up to participants. There's a lot of your testimony already in the slide deck, but it's even better to hear it firsthand. Panu?
Good morning, and thank you very much, Reda. I'm happy for the success so far. We have again run the exercise successfully. So that is great, and clearly we are building the evidence that participants find this type of training engaging, memorable, and fun, and particularly effective. So we will certainly continue looking at how to mainstream this type of training into the increasing need of training of ERU delegates and other delegates as well on a wide range of issues where it, for cost and logistics reasons, is impossible to bring people to same location. So I'm happy with that. This is not over by this. As you said, the central outcome of this exercise will be how we use these stories to create the face-to-face learning package, and that is something that we will then be piloting in Canada. Um, Although I have to say that the rich material that we have actually can be a source for multiple um, multiple products, depending on how we continue working with it. It can be a base for research, a content analysis, an academic study. It can also turn into a searchable library, if you want, for case studies as they are. And of course, a lot of them can be used for different advocacy purposes. So we are just in the beginning of looking at the rich material that this exercise has generated. And so there will be a lot of work still to be done. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Panu. And yeah, this had a twin sort of two objectives. The first objective was to give that quality experience and to help people progress and make sense of SAF for themselves, to take back to their society, and then also to turn these case studies into knowledge we can use for training and possibly other purposes. All right, I believe Fatima and Ea are the two from Spanish Red Cross respectively, and then from the Psychosocial Support Center. So we're going to start with you two. If you have questions from the ERU or National Society side, you were also both participants, so you may not have the same kinds of questions that managers may ask. I've unmuted. Yes, Fatima, good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
I just wanted to maybe ask, okay, we are now in the middle of an ERU training, and it's a pity we could not use the SAF this time, because, I mean, people were just submitting their projects, etc. We have introduced the concept, but I would like to know, as Canadian Red Cross is going to pilot it, which are the next steps for the next ERU trainings? Maybe it's too early, I know, but I think it's a very good initiative, because I'm quite worried in the trainings about the safety, security, and all these things. And I was really, we open this training to the whole roster, and I was impressed about the commitment. And I mean, people, I think, were worried and engaged and trying to present their projects. So first of all, thanks for the support. And yes, my question is, how are we going to proceed from at this point?
May I answer that, perhaps?
Yes.
Reda?
Yes, okay. Please.
So yeah, it's a pity that the timeline was what it was, and your training is just right now. It's the same thing for Swiss Red Cross, but the timeline was what we could make it. So I'll be going myself to Canada, so I get firsthand experience from how it works out. After that, we have an opportunity of making tweaking and changes based on how it works in classroom. The next opportunity of testing it is August in Norway, and then we will make the material available. What we also need to consider as managers is whether the scholar session and the online exercise itself should be what we are offering constantly or regularly with rolling enrollment, or how we would like to do this. In the case of safer access framework, we need to also engage the new colleagues of ICRC who are thematic file holders on safer access, and also our security colleagues, because we want to be very clear that we are not introducing a second second security training or another alternative security framework for our delegates. There can be only one security framework, and it needs to be very, very crystal clear who provides security trainings. So the expectation for this exercise has been from the beginning that we want to close the gap, bridge the reality of national societies who work with SAF and federation trained surge delegates who come from a completely different environment. When it comes to wider security awareness training, we need to be even more strategic. So there are a few steps to consider in the future, but of course we will make available all the products that are to follow and results of the Canadian pilot.
Okay, thank you, Panu.
Thanks, Panu and Fatima. Now over to Ea from a Psychosocial Support Center.
Yes, I really think this kind of training has a lot of potential. And I was especially impressed with you, Breda, when you were running the sessions. I found that really immensely useful. I think you were, sorry to, to take up the time by praising you, but I found that really useful and well done. I think that the stress on the interaction and the collaboration between participants was really good. However, what I think is that we need to find, I already wrote to you, I think we need to strike the balance between the content and then all this about interaction and posting all the updates. I felt like it was, when I looked at it, I felt it a bit Facebookish. So people sometimes just post it to post and to be seen and to have it reflected in their activity catalog, which I really hate. And I also think that sometimes we got into the movement of we've done so great, we are so wonderful. Whereas the reason this came about is that we're concerned about quality, and so am I when it comes to the psychosocial support that is being offered in the ERU. So from my side, I think that I would really go with Panu and you when you say that this should be or could be made into something, the kind of training that we offer, because it builds on the interaction and engagement like we do in real life training, where we also see that people, when we body them, they keep in contact and they stay connected for months after the trainings, and they build small communities. So I think that we can also take the learning from this and use it, and I'd like to work further on how we can do it so it's mainstreamed into the same format. So that's the point for me. Did I make sense? I wasn't prepared to speak at all, so I hope I made sense.
Yes, certainly makes sense to me, and these are very good. Very much. These comments are very much appreciated. I don't know if Panu wants to respond to any specific points. Otherwise, let's go to Alain. Alain, you'll need to unmute yourself. You've had your yes. Please go ahead.
Hello. You understand me?
Loud and clear.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, Alain. Please go ahead.
Okay, I said that I'm very happy to do this training session. I learned a lot, and I am very happy. I say I intend to translate it in my community now. I just got with my president of my local community to make this simulation to explain to my colleague and other people in my local community how to carry out SAF4ERU access framework to our program to prepare some difficult situation. I'm very happy, and I intend to be a part of another training session. Sorry for my poor English, for another training session. I learned a lot during this training session, very much a lot, and I'm very happy to work with another participant who helped me when we started the training session to hear more. And with my group, we have to do a good work, and I'm very happy. I want to say thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alain, as well for this feedback. All right, I see Ranvig and Miriam, so it'd be great to hear from both of you. And then there was also, so first Ranvig and then Miriam. Ranvig, you'll need to unmute yourself first.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Just one comment. What taking part in this exercise? There's one thing that, as everyone else, I learned a lot, and it's been very interesting, interesting way to work. But what I really sort of missed was, especially in the beginning, maybe the first 2 weeks, there was a lot of focus on the technicalities, on how to use the Scholar and the platforms. And I sort of lacked the introduction to SAF. Yes, we got the reading material, and I actually read the extensive part twice, but I would have loved to have one of the sessions to actually be more on the SAF and less on the technical side. I think it would have made it easier, at least for me, to write the case study. Now I was very confused in the beginning which experience should I write about? Should I do the Bangladeshi, the Nepali, the Ebola, whatever? Because I didn't know what I was supposed to put in there. So a bit more focus on the actual content and less on the technical side in the beginning would have been good. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ranvig. That's very valuable feedback as well. All right, Miriam.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, I would just like to say I really liked the training. It was very engaging and interesting. And I really liked the different support system that you had, the WhatsApp group and the remote coffee with someone from the National Society. Even though I'm in the ERU roster for the Norwegian Red Cross, I don't have one of the official training. So I'm actually going to the ERU training in Norway in August. So I'm looking forward to see what we will get there from this exercise.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mohammed Amirul Adli, I believe, is from Malaysian Red Crescent Society, had quite a large contingent from probably the largest from non-ERU society. So let me just ask Mohammed if we'd love to hear about your experience and what you'd like to share back with the ERU managers from these societies. You'll need to unmute yourself, Mohammed. Okay, either Mohammed doesn't hear us. Otherwise, yeah, so Patrick, let's hear from Patrick from French Red Cross.
Yes, good morning to you. What I would like to say is really, I think for the technical knowledge and how to learn Scholar, and I think it was very interesting because you have different people with different level of knowledges on technical. So I think really how you have managed the group and how you have managed the development of training, it was really very good. And even if some people found that it was too long, but we are not alone. We have to you have very well explained how to work, how to go on Scholar, and after it was step by step, and everything was very well explained by the tutorial. So it was good. Thanks you, and I would like to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. All right, let's go to Olav Asso from Norwegian Red Cross ERU. And I believe, Olav, you're on my list of contacts for ERU managers. So you'll introduce yourself, and would love to hear from you what you make of this.
Yeah, Olav, as you said, Norcross ERU coordinator, and now on a mission to the Asia Pacific Regional Office in KL, but returning to Norway in July. I think this is this seems like something which is new, innovative, and has created a lot of participant engagement. I mean, already 2 of the Norwegian Red Cross participants have spoken, which is good. As Panu mentioned, we Norcross have an ERU training in August, and we need to start preparing on how to use or how to utilize that training as a second pilot after the first pilot in Canada. So I would appreciate if you guys contact me directly and we start discussing on how to implement this in late August. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Olav. All right, we are 1
Wait,
minute
I
past.
don't know how to raise my hand, but when it's good time for me to comment, then let me.
Okay, well, we're technically we're 1 minute over time, so over to you, and I'll let you comment and conclude.
Thank you, Olav, for that. That was always my plan because the Norwegian training comes very conveniently there. What we are thinking a little bit outside of the ERU context, but we have struggled for several years with the FACT training, how we make it health specific without making it health exclusive. ADPIC was one effort, and we are considering abandoning it because it isolates the health people from the others. At the same time, the current FACT training is not enough. So what my next pilot is going to be is to pilot this type of learning environment several months or several weeks before the actual FACT training for the selected FACT health coordinators, bring them the knowledge and engagement in this type of environment, let them go to the FACT training where they have the field simulation, and then catch them back to the scholar environment, to the peer group environment, to further elaborate on their learning, so that we would engage the future FACT health coordinators for a better part of a year around the actual training and really be able to coach them in a better way. So that pilot is soon to come. Perhaps this was news for Reda as well, but anyhow.
Yes, indeed. All right, thank you, Panu. Thank you for all the participants who came. I'm sorry that more ERU managers, we reached out to them at least three separate messages did not come. So especially thanks to Olav, Fatima, and Aya. Wishing you all well. We'll definitely be in touch because we're going to be following up on some of the permissions related stuff. Some of you have reservations, so there maybe with Panu we can see how we can reassure you, especially if your case study is, would be sort of very significant from a training perspective for future ERU delegates. So I just want to say thank you. This has been one of, we've done now, we're doing more and more scholar exercises and courses. This has been an absolutely amazing one and has sort of rekindled my Red Cross, Red Crescent fire, let's say, or flame. So wishing you all well and hope to see you again very soon, and we'll definitely be in touch to follow up. And for those of you, if you have colleagues who are interested in the catch-up session that will be running the 18th of June, basically they're gonna we'll have a few days in which we'll provide support and connect with people so they can finish up their project or do their peer reviews or finish up their revision and basically leave no one behind. So thank you, take care, and I think that's it for today. And we'll have another session tonight for folks in the other time zones and hopefully more ERU manager participation. And now unmute everyone so we can say goodbye to each other. You know how this works, and take care.
Bye, everyone.